Hey, welcome to the backyard. So this is Friday, July 17th, and we're doing a video series on what is Reiki. So this is the first installment. Reiki, historically in Japanese society, at least in the 1800s, was I'm given to understand that it was a fairly frequent term used for something to the effect of laying on of hands. But Reiki, as we know it through the lineage practice, was started by Master Miyako. I hope I'm saying his name right. Master Yusui. And it was an inspired teaching. He had, if the stories that I was told when I received the attunement is correct, he was ill. He was a monk in the late 1800s. He came down with something. He had a fever. He had a vision. And during this vision, a great teacher showed him the symbols and taught him how to use them. Eventually, he gave up his robes and he opened the first clinic of Yusui Reiki in 1922 in Tokyo. It is my belief that Reiki being in use throughout, well, I don't know if we can contribute everything just to Yusui Reiki. I'm not sure we can say that. But it's possible that the practice of Reiki as we know it was instrumental in helping the Japanese people overcome the damage of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. I think that might actually be fair to say. We can't attribute everything that the Japanese people overcame strictly to seaweed and green tea. I think that's stretching it a bit. So, master, we've covered the use of the word Reiki in Japanese society. Now, granted, I've never been there, so, I'm going off what I've been told and the people that I have been told this I trust, but I have never been there myself. So, having said that, we covered the word Reiki. Let's cover the word master. The Asian use of the word master means a great teacher. So let's say before Jesus was put upon the cross and crucified, I think it would be safe to say that in his day and age, while he was teaching, he could be called master in the Asian sense of things pretty effectively. I think that's fair. Now, I am a master. That means I can pass the lineage on, right? I can take on students. I can pass on the symbols directly and give the teachings. I'm a master of two different lineages. The first one is Yusui, which we've just covered. The second is Karuna, which is late 20th century. I can't say that it was a inspired. I don't know William Lee Rand's story, but he was also a student of Yusui and a few other lineages, a few other forms of Reiki directly out of Japan. And he formulated the Karuna format, for lack of a better word. He formulated Karuna system um, to, it's my experience with Yusui that Yusui is mostly connected with healing the body and connecting the body to the spirit. And Karuna has some applications in that regard, definitely, but it also has broader aspects, and can be used to like clear human echoes out of like a locale, whether that be a building, a piece of land, whatever. And in my experience of having doing this for 20 years, being a master of both lineages and taking on very, very, very precious few students, the matter of trust between whether it's the master to student, whether it's the practitioner, master or not, to the recipient, just like in Western medicine, you have to have trust, either specifically in your practitioner, your surgeon, the pharmaceuticals. It plays a very large role, just as a person's will to live plays a large role in whether they overcome and carry on or succumb. So the need for trust, it's not just a desirable set of circumstances. It's a real need to have that trust established, built, or I don't know, just naturally existing between the giver and the receiver, in order for these methodologies to be ultimately successful. And I've seen this over and over again. There's a lady I know who she actually started me in the business. I had already received all of the attunements, and she's like, "Oh, you should start a business." And she's, out of the goodness of her own heart, it was just astounding. She comes up with like business cards and brochures and just like bowled me over. She's like, "Here you go," handed me the whole thing like fully formed. It was impressive. I mean, she did ask for some details of what I did, but the next thing I know, she gives me this gift package of business cards and brochures. It was just, I was speechless. I'm not even sure that I thanked her properly, but she came to me and she said she wanted to go back to her homeland. She missed being there. She had been in the U.S. long enough, and she just, something inside her, she wanted to go back. So she came and she had a session with me at my house, and she said that she didn't know how she was going to be able to go back to England or not. Things were just too nebulous. She had this desire to go, but how to actually work the steps and get over there, she didn't know. So we had a session, and the very next day, she was established in plans to move back, and they were tangible and practical, and she went. The amount of trust that she showed me, the way she allowed me access to her to help her, um, was immaculate, just amazing. Um, and on, there are many other anecdotes, stories that I can tell you. I'll tell you a few, but um, the real point of these other stories that I'm about to relay are turning trauma into something useful, into something fruitful. Um, so there's this one fella I knew. Now, some of these folks I've lost contact with, and I don't know how things turned out past what I already know. So there's this one fella who lived in the same apartment complex that I used to live in, and he wanted to have Reiki done, and we made a trade. He gave me my first tattoo, and I gave him Reiki. But the circumstances of how he received Reiki were highly unusual. We were trying to make an appointment, get together, and have this second part of the trade done. He'd already given me my tattoo. I needed to give him what he asked for as bartership. So he happened to be out in front of the apartment building, uh, um, and he was savagely stabbed in the back. And he was rushed to the hospital. He lost a kidney, and he lost several inches of his colon. Now, you may not know, maybe you do, but colon surgeries, especially with a violent altercation, infections are common after surgeries. So I heard about it because I couldn't get in touch with him. I heard about it when I got home that evening from work, and I went straight over to the hospital every day after work for like 3 days. And it didn't matter that I was still dressed for work. I went from work straight into the hospital, and worked with him while he was recovering. And he was released after 3 days, which is also unusual. This being, I think that would have been late. Hang on. No, that would have been 2000, 2001. Yeah, I think it's 2001. Sorry, memory being what it is, especially after a concussion in my 50s. So, at any rate, I heard about it. I did something about it. He was released after 3 days and he did not suffer further infections. He had, in the process of trying to make an appointment, he had voiced to me that he was tired of the life that he had led as a late 20s, early 30s male in Seattle, Washington, and he was ready to get out of the drinking and the drugging that he was in, that whole scene. He was ready to be done with it, but, getting over not just the addiction, but detox, having to move through that whole thing was kind of scary. But he wanted to settle down, get married, and have children. And so I kept that in mind as I went into the hospital every single day and worked with him. And maybe about a year and a half later, I'm guessing, I had heard from mutual friends that he successfully got out of the hospital without further complications due to the advanced surgeries that he had to have. He did get married, and he had children on the way at the time. Again, I don't think anything that I've done for anyone would be possible if they didn't trust me. Whether it's because they knew me or because there was something about me that they trusted, or they trusted the lineage, or they, you know, however that occurred for whatever reason, um, trust was developed and established. Uh, the one other story that I'm going to tell you is how it doesn't work when there is no trust involved. A young lady, and Olive, oh, well, I can't remember now. I don't want to say that if I don't remember correctly or clearly. So, a young lady knew someone I was dating, and she asked for a session, and I consented to give her one. She consented to have the Reiki, which is mandatory that the master or the practitioner must always ask the recipient, must receive a verbal yes or no um, in order to proceed. So she gave me a verbal yes, and I proceeded to do a session with her, but her motives were incorrect. Her motives were to try and find out how pervasive, how powerful, how I'm at a loss for words because I still don't quite understand why she behaved the way she did. I can only speculate, but she fought me. I tried to assist her with whatever was going on in her life at the time. She did not, I don't remember her elaborating at all. But it was a test of wills. She wanted to see how powerful the technique was as opposed to what she could fend off. But she said yes. She consented. So even though during that moment while I'm trying to work with her, she was covered with like Teflon. Things just kept sliding off. Nothing would absorb. She was fighting it. She refused, non-verbally. But I've come to understand that if verbal consent is given, even if one in that moment rejects the I don't want to say system. If one rejects the format because consent was given, um, the format kind of orbits. Yeah, that would be correct. It orbits the individual until the guards are down. But at that point, at least for this person, I concluded the session, and I was not there to assist with any kind of further adjustments that may have needed to be made for her sake. But in saying that, I know that this particular format is harmless. It could only do her good. Now, you know as well as I do that sometimes blessings can be disguised. And you may not like what happens on the immediate level, but in the long term, things are improved. You may not see that right away. And I don't think in this young lady's case that would be accurate, but I have no contact with the guy that got me in touch with her because we had a falling out, you know, the way sometimes people you date, you just don't keep in touch. So, yeah, that happened. And she disappeared, and I can only wish her well. And I did my best for her, I really did. Whatever her deal was, I have no idea what was really going on. I can speculate, and it might even be an educated speculation, but I really don't know. But trauma into fruitfulness. I've had a hard life this go round. Whether you believe in a single mortal life or several, that life is only the breath of life that we all share, whether it's shared with an insect or a plant or another human being or whatever. Or you could see that we only get one flesh bag ever, right? However you'd like to see this. I've had a rough go around. And this is not, oh, I've got a paper cut. Oh, I'm damaged for life. No. I've had a rough go around. I've had to come through a number of very traumatic situations, and I've done it. And so if you're out there and you see this, and you're dealing with some really heavy duty stuff, I can help you. I really can. And not just because I've got the format or the skill of 2 different formats. It's because I may have really been there already and come out the other side. You know, I've done my own Shawshank Redemption. Okay, so if you're needing help, get in touch. I'm here for you. We can work it. We'll turn it into something beautiful if you let me. So, beyond that, I need to tell you that further information, both scientific and otherwise, can be found on my website, which is https:// Denver Reiki, no spaces, just a straight run on DenverReiki at, denverreiki.us. 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 Lots of information there. And there's one more anecdote that I want to share with you. Same time frame as my friend, the tattoo artist. I knew another lady in the same building, very, I won't say overtly Catholic, but deeply Catholic. Raised that way, not dogmatic. She was not like out to save the world, but she held herself upright. You know what I'm saying? And I admired her for that. I liked her for that. She was a powerhouse in her own right. But she asked for a Reiki session with me just to find out what it was like, so that way she didn't have to speculate or take somebody's word for it. And no money changed hands. She was not asking for a Reiki session because she had physical ailment or emotional issues or mental difficulties. It was nothing like that. So we had a session, and her response when I asked the standard stereotypical question, how was that for you? She said it was like a quiet, holy moment in church. And I remember that verbatim, because it was like a benediction all by itself. It was such a sweet moment for me. Yeah, so if I have a tagline, if I could trademark it, I would. No dogma, just life. Just be a good person, do your best. try and be decent to people and be harmless, and no dogma, just life. So next time, the next video is going to be what makes Reiki Reiki. What makes Reiki different from other things like laying on of hands? So hopefully we'll see you then. You have a great day. Thanks for watching.